Welcome to Reality of the Rose with your host, Natalie Sprink.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 195 of Reality of the Rose. I'm your host, Natalie Sprink. Just little old me today, and today's episode is going to be recapping the last two episodes of Bachelor in Paradise. So last week and then this week's episode, which was the finale. So we're going to do that. I'm also going to go over a couple of shows that I have watched recently in the past 2 weeks as recommendations and just my little kind of short review of them in case you're interested. But to start, I want to again promote my merch that I am now selling on Etsy. The Etsy store is called Be Anything by Natalie. I also have, I don't know, I keep researching ways to kind of push my Etsy shop because Etsy is so super saturated with stuff, obviously, and for you to get your foot in the door, I have found is very hard. So if you want to go and purchase some merch just to like get me going, you know, the more merch I sell, the more the algorithm works, because believe it or not, even Etsy has an algorithm. It's wild. So I've been trying a couple things to try and boost that. It's not worked real great yet, but I'm hopeful, right? So I even heard that if you start a TikTok for that account and just every day post something that's on your page, just a little video, that just sort of gets it exposure. So if you want to see some of the merch, well, obviously you can just go to my store on Etsy and look at it. But I also have a little TikTok, and every day I kind of showcase one of the pieces that I have. But the primary one is my Be Calm, Be Strong, Be Kind, Be Grateful. And it's just real minimalistic. If you watched, if you happened to listen to last week's episode with Jody, and if you watched it, we both are wearing the sweatshirt of that one. And then I put a B on the right sleeve. Now, there are some pieces where you're not allowed to print on the sleeve. And in those cases, I put a little B, just like B, E, period. Not like literally a bumblebee, but like B, like just B. But I also do other little phrases like, because we have Wicked coming up in a couple months, I have one that says Be Wicked, both a t-shirt and a sweatshirt. And then I also have some that say Be Curious. I have Be Unbothered. I have Be one other one. What is it? Either way, I have several different little sayings. It's not only Be Calm, Be Strong, Be Kind, Be Grateful, but they're supposed to be just like little empowering phrases. Real minimalistics, not a lot of, there's not lots of graphics or anything. They're just simple sweatshirts. But anyway, enough about that. If you want to go check it out, though, I would truly appreciate that. I've also started a YouTube channel. Is that what you call it? It's very new. I am going to start posting all my episodes on YouTube, on my YouTube. And so you can find it by just, I think, again, I'm very new to this. You can find it by just searching for the Reality of the Rose, and then my name as well. And you should be able to find it. I don't know that I can put the link in the notes because, well, maybe I can. I'll figure that out. I'm figuring this all out, and you guys are like joining me in that little journey as I figure this all out. But because I won't post that until after I post the actual episode, I won't have the actual link, the YouTube link to post in my show notes because I've already posted that, if that makes sense. But anyway, I'll figure it out. But I think if you just go into YouTube and if you want to watch it, especially if I have a guest, you may be interested in watching, you know, me interview a guest. And if you want to go see my merch, but on somebody. But I I have posted the last 3 episodes on YouTube already. So it starts at like what, 194, 192. So 192, 193, 194 are all on there already. So if you feel like watching it, you can do that as well. So anyway, let's get to the episode, right? Okay. So the first show that I want to talk about, and I was sick last week one day, and so I started watching Love is Blind UK, which is on Netflix. And I've heard good things about the previous season, and it kept popping up when I turned on my Netflix. So I just took Netflix's word for it, and I started watching it, and it was really good. I think they cast it really well. I liked all of the characters, so to speak. They were just interesting to watch. Maybe it's the accent. I love a UK. Well, they were from different, they were noticing different accents in each other depending on where they were from. And I was like, I sounds all the same to me. But there was a couple that are more in the Scotland area, so they had more of that Scottish accent. But either way, I just love listening to the accent. I just feel smarter even just listening to them talk. Why do they sound so eloquent, and they sound so intelligent, and they sound so articulated? They articulate themselves so well, and they use such like classy words like lovely, and what's another one that they would use all the time? I don't know. Just the way they say them just is beautiful. I love listening to them talk. Although I did have to turn on the captions because I couldn't quite understand everything that they were saying. But either way, all the couples that they had, I was so invested in, so interested in. I thought, especially the women, I always just enjoy watching them and, excuse me, seeing the different personality types and sort of, how they handle themselves. And I swear to God, I learn about communication and bad and good ways to communicate when I'm watching shows like this. I swear. But they were, I don't know, just a really good group of people, I thought. It's already over. The reunion happened or was released on August 31st. So it's a fairly new season. The episodes have just been being dropped in August. And like I said, the reunion dropped on August 31st, which was also very good. But interesting, like which couples stayed together, which didn't, which the ones that didn't, like I was surprised by, and like the whole thing. And I really found it interesting to the end. I don't know, with Love is Blind, what I've watched enough seasons that by the time I get to the last episode, I mean, it's structured completely identical to the US. It's just in the UK. But the last episode where they all have the weddings, I have learned that I just literally fast forward through all the fluff until they get up to the altar, because it's basically the same. Honestly, the last 2 episodes, like where they're shopping for their wedding dresses and where they have their like little bachelor and bachelorette party, those seem like kind of fluffy too. But especially the wedding ones, I fast forward through until the very end. So that helped me watch it a little bit quicker, but really good, really good. Highly recommend. If you're Love is Blind, you like US, if you've watched the US ones, I would highly recommend the UK. I want to say there's 10 episodes, maybe 9 possibly. But highly recommend that. The other one that I'm watching now is called Love Thy Nador. And this one just started, and it is on Freeform, but it next day is released on Hulu. And Love Thy Nador is it's a reality show around 4 sisters, the Nador sisters. If you're a Dancing with the Star fan, Brooks Nador was with Gleb. Was that last season? Last season or the season before? And if you will remember, then they were in a relationship. I mean, well, we find out in the show that they really started their relationship like almost immediately upon being paired up. But either way, if you watch Dancing with the Stars, that was her beautiful, beautiful girl. And then she's got three sisters, and the night Brooks got eliminated, her sisters were in on the dance they did. Again, I know you'll totally remember this if you watch that season, but uh, so it's the four sisters, and they grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and they have all moved to New York, and they all live together in an apartment. And it's like, I want to say it's Kardashian like, but it's not. It's not like they don't remind me of the Kardashians themselves. It's just sort of structured in that way where it just follows them, like living the New York life, basically. But it's much more low key than the Kardashians. They don't live the like highfalutin, completely uber wealthy life by any means. I mean, they do well for themselves, but their apartment is pretty modest in New York, well, by New York standards at least. And it's just really fascinating. So the show starts out with them um, at the end of Dancing with the Stars, and her and Gleb are still together. And then it follows like what happened and why she broke up with him, and like they're there in the guts of it, and you get to see like as it happens what she finds out and all this. But her sisters are, I think they're 23, 25, 26, and then Brooks is 28. She's the oldest. And then her parents, like their parents come up, and their parents are the sweetest couple. They're probably like, I don't know, mid 50s ish, but cutest, like, I just love them. They're like stealing the show for me. They're not on like tons. They've come to visit the girls. I'm on episode 2, and they're just the sweetest people, like totally. But they're just fun to watch. They don't feel like they're really aware of the cameras, and I'm really convinced when I watch it that they're acting the way they always act. I mean, they fight like sisters. They get on each other's nerves like they're sisters, but they're totally, totally support each other. And it kind of follows a little bit of each of their careers. I would say the main focus is on Brooks, but her youngest sister is Sarah Jane, I believe, and then the 25-year-old is Grace Ann, and then the other sister is Mary Holland, I believe, and then Brooks, which is actually, she's Brooks Claire, but she doesn't go by the middle name. The other three do, but the other three, Brooks is like blonde, the other blonde-ish, and the other three are dark-haired and look so similar. Anyway, that doesn't matter, but it's really good. Now that being said, I'm only on episode 2. I just finished 2 of the episodes. They're an hour each, and I think there's 4 out already, but it's really, really good. I'm sure it's a more limited series to start, and then whether they get renewed or not. But if I had my, vote, I would, I really am enjoying the show. They're really fun to watch. And it's cool since, Allie lives in New York, and one of Allie's roommates, was in a restaurant when they were filming this show. They were filming a scene. Whether it makes the cut or not, I don't know, but it could be that Maggie, shout out, will be in the background. So, like some of the stuff I can even recognize, but it's just, I don't know, love it. I like any show based in New York, I feel like. But yeah, so I recommend that one. Like I said, it's on Freeform. I think it's on Tuesday. I think episodes drop on Tuesdays, maybe. But then it follows up on Hulu, so you can always find them there. So definitely recommend that one as well. Alrighty. So another just little tidbit of information. It sounds like the women of the next Golden season will be introduced on Thursday. Well, today this is when I'm releasing the episode, but and I'm assuming it'll just be a typical release of the women, like their bios on Instagram and some little videos and stuff. But September 24th, is that when Golden starts? I believe it is. So we will be there for or I will be there for recapping that for you guys too. Let's see. I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's any other juicy gossip. Oh, like Love Island gossip, I guess, after the reunion. Like it seems like every single couple besides possibly Ace and Shelley are split up now, which kind of seems ridiculous after watching the reunion that like 2 days later Amaya and Brian and Iris and Pepe are broken up. I just makes you wonder, what agreements actually are, and how real the relationships are. Oh, I guess Nick Landry is still together though too. But that I heard a blurb that Ace was on a podcast, and he said that the relationship isn't real. That Nick told him that there isn't really any romantic spark. Now, don't ask me when that was that he said that, but the podcast was recent. And according to the reunion, Shelley and Ace are not like official yet either, because at that time, at least, I don't know, maybe by now he hadn't asked her to be his girlfriend, which I think is sort of a crazy concept anyway. I don't really get that whole, you have to ask me to be your girlfriend, otherwise we're not boyfriend, girlfriend, although we're exclusive. We spend all our time together, and I just think that's weird. That's a labels thing, and that's a generation thing, I suppose. But, yeah. So, but to be honest, I'm already kind of like, mentally stepping back from Love Island, already, and not losing interest, but, it's interesting how quickly that happens. So yeah. Okay. Let's get on with the Bachelor in Paradise recap. Okay. So last episode, we had 6 couples when it started, and Jesse comes out and tells them that they're all going to be served a really nice dinner. And so we start our trek onto the first, as like a preliminary to the first another couples challenge. So they get this really nice dinner. But in the meantime, they have set up these glamping sites out in the middle of the jungle, or supposedly out in the middle of the jungle. So as they're eating, we start to get footage of Kat like totally freaking out because these bugs are flying around her. And I mean, she does seem to be truly kind of flipping out about these bugs, but it was clear that they just wanted to make, serve up some comedy, I guess, for this episode, or serve up what we're supposed to think is this like big challenge for Kat and Dale. Because like what I find funny when they do stuff like this is like the entire rest of the show, and then I'll speak forward to the finale, and you don't see her like swatting away one bug or speaking about her hatred for bug or her phobia for bugs or anything, except for this one episode. And it's like off the charts, like manic about these bugs. But they start that, and everyone else, they make it look like is just eating, like normal, and the bugs aren't bothering them or anything like that. Although I see a couple little snippets where I think it was Andrew one time was eating and kind of like swatted away the bug. And I feel like there was another little part where someone said something about, well, except for all the bugs, which makes me think that probably it was annoying everybody, but they were like just decided to be super focused on Kat. Anyway. All right. So they tell them, then they eat this nice dinner, and then they tell them they're going to get to go glamping. But when they get there, it's these tent sites. And the challenge is they have to build their tent. They have like just little chairs that they're going to sit on. They have water. They have to like share their drinks or their water. They have to, what else did they have to do? They have several things that they have to do, and they have to basically work together and see how well they work together. But what they've done then is that they have this woman, this relationship expert, that is watching them unbeknownst to them from this studio. And she's watching how they all interact together, like as couples. And so the campsites are set up, they're all in the same area, but they're a little spread out. So each couple is exclusive to themselves for setting up their own camp. And so I thought it was interesting. And I mean, it was fine. I don't know. What's better, I don't mind these tests because it's something different to watch. And I'm saying, as in comparison to the old Bachelor in Paradise setup, it's something a little bit different to watch, besides them all just like laying in the pool and laying on all those couches and chairs, and literally that's it. And occasionally one of them gets a date, and all it is to some bar where they, like, either they drink and swim in a pool, or they have to go do some like ceremony where they, do hot yoga and then smoke blows up their nose. I don't know. So I think this is like a good change of pace from that. So I don't mind this. Like, the things that were interesting to point out was that they showed Andrew and Alex, and they seemed to really work well together. They were like super chill. They were relaxed. They weren't freaking out about anything. Oh, I guess also there was all kinds of like cow shit, I guess, sitting around from, I obviously cows. I know I didn't see any cows, but apparently, or horse shit. No, it was horse shit, I believe. Anyway, so they had that to contend with as well. They have, of course, Kat. So Kat continues to completely lose her mind over all the bugs that are flying around. In fact, she's like so much losing her mind that she's literally crying about it, and honestly having a panic attack. And so she's keeps calling it a phobia. I guess it could be a phobia. I just feel like no matter what, there's probably a lot of bugs in Costa Rica, and don't understand how come this phobia never came out until now. But they show Dale, ugh, handle it quite well, and just tells her to, like, you just sit down, I'll set everything up, like, you just relax here, take a drink of water, like, here, do this, do that, whatever. They have, so Kathy and Keith were still there at this time. They pretty much, do like old people do, and probably have done this, in their lifetimes, have done it at least like just by default a couple times. So they just like do their thing. Although I guess this was kind of funny because Kathy let Keith do most of it, and she just kept going, "Good job, Keith. Good job. Way to go." And then she would drink her wine and like cheer him on from the side. Jess and Spencer did pretty well, and they just more or less had fun with it. Spencer, I guess, if I'm not mistaken, he had some experience with this. Like, was he in the military or something? Maybe, I don't know. But he was like, I love doing this kind of stuff. This is just my kind of thing. So it was no big deal to him. Jeremy did really well. Maybe he was the one in the military. Jeremy, what? Remind me. But anyway. Jeremy was loving it. Bailey wasn't that crazy about it, but they did fine. So like the relationship couple is continuing to like observe them, because they have cameras like on these posts set up everywhere. And so, she's just kind of keeping an eye on for them. They all pretty much get this tent set up. They're like, oh, and then they have this little test where they have like two chairs. One of them is broken and one of them is not. And so kind of the reason, like every single couple had that. And I guess the test was to see who took the broken chair, and how that was decided. So that was another little test. But then they start hearing this big monkey screeching noise, I guess. That's not what it sounded like to me. I didn't know what the hell it sounded like. Not that I've ever heard of monkeys screeching, I guess, in my backyard, but apparently they all, they cut to commercial like it was going to be some cliffhanger. I guess we thought they were all going to die. I don't know. But they come back, and Jesse was like, oh, it's time to go here because it's not safe. I don't know if that was supposed to be true, or if that was just, I think maybe that was just their, like, that was a joke, and that was supposed to be like, okay, just kidding. Like, this was, this challenge, and you were being watched, and it's over now. So you don't have to sleep out here. We won't make you sleep out here amongst the screeching monkeys. So they leave, and then all of a sudden it's the next morning, and, oh, that's right. The next morning is when they learn that this was another relationship test, that it was not just like some funny haha joke thing for all of them, but it was actually a relationship test. And they go into this room and they meet with the woman who was the expert and who was observing them the whole time. And these were her findings. So she says Keith and Kathy communicate well, but they aren't romantically interested in each other. That was no surprise there. That was not too shocking. But Jonathan and Leah had the same prognosis, which again, so they were still there at the time. They were not surprised by this either. She said Andrew and Alex had fun, but that she didn't feel the physical chemistry. And they had a real problem with this diagnosis because they were like, that's not true. Like, we definitely have a physical chemistry. And she said, that's just what I noticed from the way you guys dealt with each other. Because there was a time when, like, they were practicing kissing or something. And I think Alex was like, okay, how would you kiss me if it was going to be our last kiss? It was something to that nature. And he says, he like uses tongue. And she's like, oh, you just go in with the tongue, huh? And so I don't know. I guess that's why. Fuck, I don't know. But anyway, so they didn't like that. They didn't like that analysis. Then Jeremy and Bailey, she said they do have chemistry, but she questions other stuff like similar likes and dislikes. And then Jeremy got like all defensive and basically told her that she's wrong. And then Dale and Kat got the prognosis. Am I using the right word? Her analysis was that they did very well under stress. And well, Kat didn't. I think Dale did well with Kat under stress was her point, and that they were announced the winners. Oh, Spencer and Jess have emotional and physical chemistry, but she suggested that they take their time, which is such a weird thing because it just so happened on this episode, that Jess was starting to like be a little worried that they were taking things maybe a little bit too quickly, and that she didn't know if she was going to be ready to like be engaged right away, which was real ironic because spoiler alert of what happens at the end of the finale, they get engaged. So it feels like the little relationship expert maybe was told what to say, possibly. So anyway, Kat and Dale are the winners. Okay. So what do they get? They get a date night. And I didn't make any notes about the date night because I'm sure it was like any other date night. I honestly don't remember. So then they show Spencer and Jess talking about kids, and they find out that like she wants kids a lot, or he wants kids a lot quicker than she does. And they're like actually finally talking about something that seems like real conversations, like I always say they do in Love is Blind versus The Bachelor. But they were talking about kids. All they were talking about was the time frame, kind of. But then they talked about moving in together, and they were kind of discussing like their current leases and how those like leases ending align and how that would or could work into them moving in together. Spencer ITMs that he's in love with her, and then she ITMs that she's not sure if she's in love with him. Of course. And then Jess starts freaking out to the girls when they are in their rooms together about how quickly Spencer wants to move in together and how she's not sure she's ready. So blah, blah, blah. We get this narrative, I guess to like throw us off course. So then, well, magically the next day, Spencer approaches Jess and he's like, look, I hear you and I heard you last night about basically you not wanting to really rush, and I don't want to push you or anything like that. So let's just move at a pace we're both comfortable with and we'll figure it out. Okay. Like rainbows and sunshine. Alex and Andrew have a talk about love, and they basically say first they were saying that they weren't like love. The word love was very important to each of them, and how they didn't, they don't want to use it too quickly. So heaven forbid you tell someone you love them after, you've been here for a week and a half. But they did say that they were falling in love with each other because we have to use bachelor terminology, that they're falling. Um, so I made that note, but then I was making these notes as the show was going. But then all of a sudden they both said, I love you. So I was like, oh, well, that really went quickly. And we had to, by the time they said, I don't use the word love until like I really love someone because that word means a lot to me. It took all of about 6.5 minutes before they're like, okay, just kidding. I love you. Enough time has passed. I'm done. I love you. But then it had a funny little part here where then they got up because they were obviously like kind of on their own, but on like a little couch or whatever. And it was time for them to get up and go back to everybody else. And Andrew couldn't get up. He was a little too excited. And she goes, Andrew was like, oh, well, yep, can't get up yet. And he was like leaning over. And Alex was like, oh, wait, you got a boner? Which I thought was kind of. Anyway, she just cracks up laughing then. Okay, so then we have 2 hours till the rose ceremony. It was a cocktail party. So at this point, Keith and Jonathan seem to be like the givens that they're going to be going home. That's what it seems like. Keith is verbalizing how homesick he is. He was like, I'm so homesick. I want to go home. I want to go home. I'm so homesick. But then all the girls have this little talk with Keith and they make him feel like really valued and like how much they've loved having the Goldens there, especially like he and Kathy, because they give such good advice. And he almost like gives them like dad vibes being there and making them feel better. And like he's this girl dad, so he means a lot. Well, this totally works for Keith. And he's like, God bless him. He was like looking around at those girls and like practically getting teary eyed and being like, oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. But then he seems like really sad and conflicted. And I felt bad for him because I almost felt like they were guilting him into staying. I was like, if the guy wants to go home, let him freaking go home. Like, it's not very nice. So then there's a rose ceremony and it is a tie vote. And since Dale and Kat won that challenge, it's up to Dale because the men have the roses and Dale sends Jonathan and Leah home. So they were the only ones to go home. I was thinking that, no, that's right. Kathy and Keith didn't go home yet. So then we have another relationship test and this all happens very quickly. And what it was like they set up these, what I'm going to call voodoo dolls by the beach. And then they have that are supposed to represent each person left. And then the person, like that actual person stood in front of their voodoo doll. And they like Jesse would ask a series of questions such as like, who do you think is being the least authentic with their partner, whatever. And then they had knives, which this was really kind of gruesome and morbid, but they had knives. And then whoever they thought like, fit that question the best, they went and stuck a knife in the voodoo doll's back. Yeah, they did that. But like everyone has their back facing, so no one knows who's putting a knife into whose voodoo doll. So they had, I don't know, a series of, well, I don't know how many questions there actually were, but we heard like 5 or 6 questions. And so everybody, whoever got the most knives in the back, then like that was like a point against them, so to speak. So the women now have the power. This is all on the same day. The women have the power and they learn that 2 women and men will be going home tonight. So, anyway, so that is like that all happens. That relationship test happens. And so then so that ends and they learn that, did I say that they would be going home tonight? So someone went home. Well, maybe it was the night before. I guess it was the night before that other rose ceremony happened and Jonathan and Leah went home. So then they left. And then the next day this happens. So just within 24 hours, then another 2 couples are going to go home. So then the couples are all discussing who they're going to vote for to go home. Everyone's at this point, like for sure, the Goldens are going to go home and then another couple has to. the winner of that relationship test was Andrew and Alex, meaning that they had the least number of knives stuck in their back. And then they also learned that it's the very last rose ceremony of the show. So that was the end of last week's episode. So then we get to the finale for this week, and Keith and Kathy are already just saying, like, vote us off. Like, we know it's time for us to go. We're not a couple. We don't think we deserve to win necessarily either. So just please vote us off. And everybody's like, okay. And whatever. They have, they do a lot of this. They do a lot on this show of just like chit-chatting and talking to each other and who are we going to vote off and all these things. Like, it reminds me kind of Big Brother in that sense, where there's so much talk about who should be voted off next. I feel like the difference in Big Brother is that I don't know what the difference is, because Big Brother's on like 4 times a week. Maybe it's because it's the challenges. Maybe it's because it's live and we're sort of like watching it real time too. I don't know, but this just gets boring to me in Paradise when they're just, discussing with each other who should and shouldn't go home. And anyway, so I just skip my notes through a lot of this, but the cocktail party ends, and then they all vote. And the last rose goes to Kat, which means that, because Kat and Dale were also like up. So it was like Kat and Dale, Jeremy and Bailey, and then the Goldens, who were like the questionable ones. So the last rose went to Kat. So obviously she gives it to Dale. So that means that Jeremy and Bailey go home, and then the Golden couple goes home. So then we have a couples competition for the remaining 3 couples. And this one is like a physical challenge. So they have to stand on these platforms that are angled back a little bit. So they stand, so their weight is sort of back, and they have to hang on to these handles that are attached to a rope, and they have weights on the other side on the ends of the ropes. And so as a couple, they have to each hang on to these weights, and whoever hangs on the longest is the winner of this physical competition. And so, like, after the first 10 minutes, no one drops, and they're like over a pool, and they keep adding weight on, of course, over time. Well, I thought Dale would be like the big winner on this one, but funny enough, Dale and Kat were the first ones that let their rope drop because they couldn't hang on anymore. It was too long, too heavy, whatever. Then it was Spencer and Jeff's fall. So again, Alex and Andrew win this competition. And we don't know what that means yet at this point in the show, but they won. So then all of a sudden we see Spencer telling Jess, oh yeah, they're out by the beach in a very set up scene, in my opinion. And he tells her that he lied to her. He's always been truthful with her, and he's never he's been honest with her about everything, except there's one thing he's not been honest with her about, and that was when he told her he was falling in love with her. And I was lying to you about that because now I want to tell you that I'm actually in love with you. Lord Almighty. I don't know why they insist on this language all the time. Why do they do it? Yeah, I'm rubbing my head because it just is so frustrating. So yeah, so she's so happy. Then all of a sudden they like cut to, it's later, and Spencer's like waiting in this room, and Jesse walks in with rings. Now, maybe I wasn't paying attention, but this felt out of nowhere. I was like, you just said you love her, so who did you tell that you wanted to look at rings? And why wasn't Neil Lane there to look at rings? Why was it Jesse? Were these still Neil Lane rings? And you're just showing them to us for Neil Lane? I need to know the background for that. But like, Spencer picks out a ring. And I will say that this is one thing that I'm glad they aren't and weren't so uber focused on in this on this new format of the show is like having to end in engagements. Because for me, that was one of the absolute stupidest parts of that whole show, was that if it didn't end in an engagement, then it was like they had to break up and go home. And it was, I mean, it was so illogical to me. And maybe this is, I'm just like preaching to the choir, but it was so illogical because, I mean, obviously if two people, and it did, that's how it worked. Abigail and, shit, what's his name? Nathan? No. God, the girl that has a hearing disability, Abigail and Noah. Yeah, that's what happened to them. They had to break up because they didn't want to get engaged, and they were like so sad. But then as soon as Paradise was over, they basically were together again, and they've gotten married since then and are like still together. So it's so dumb. Same with Becca Kufrin and Thomas. Same thing with them. They like broke. I think that was the same like season. They also had to break up because they weren't engaged, and now they have the kid and the whole thing. It's so that was so stupid that it had to end an engagement. Well, I guess The Bachelor's no different. Anyway, they didn't focus on that at all. They never really even talked about engagement that much. But all of a sudden, Spencer's looking at rings. So okay, so they were all like having this like fun little time, and it was nighttime, and Jesse comes out, and all of a sudden he's like, okay, like the next step is happening. And all the couples that have been voted out so far like come in. So obviously no one that like went home, quote unquote, actually went home. They were actually probably at the resort next door, unbeknownst to anybody else. So every single one of them comes walking in, and Jesse declares this the Parliament of Paradise, as Sean so weirdly named the what am I trying to say? Name them when they were trying to decide who to vote off a couple weeks ago. So apparently the couples all get to plead their case to the Parliament, and then the Parliament votes on who gets to go to the finals. So they can all vote on. So Alex and Andrew, they're automatically going. So they're voting on Spencer and Jess, or Kat and Dale. So we get Sean coming out and like dinging his little, like Jesse would do, dinging his little champagne glass. And he comes back. He like makes an announcement with Alicia standing next to his side that Kat has been like scamming everybody this whole time, and that she was trying to deny that he and her were friends, and that also she has an ex-boyfriend from back home, that she has this secret computer that she's been like sending him love messages to the whole time she's been on the show, and that she was only on this show for clout and just to get on TV. And so like they said, all this was kind of surprising because historically that's not an MO for the Bachelor to like break fourth wall kind of stuff like that, or come out with like rumors, like people clout chasing when it comes to the show. So he says that in front of everybody, which was really a douchebag move, like a real douchebag move. That was really shitty. Kat gets really upset. Dale pretty much stands by her, and most of the people are like, okay, Sean, like, let's not, this is not cool. Like, why would you call someone out on TV, like to their face, do it behind the scene, whatever. So most of the people were like mad, and they were like comforting Kat, and they were mad at him and thought it was ridiculous that he did this. So then they show like Dale and Kat walking off, and she's like pissed and like taking her mic off, and she's like, I can't believe I'm gonna be made a fool of again on this show. Like, again, kind of breaking fourth wall. They were showing producers walking around and stuff, and Dale is like, well, where did he was kind of questioning her a little bit. He's like, well, where did he get that from? Like, why would he even say that? And so she was like kind of trying to explain that, I guess, she said she did date people before. You know what? I'm going to get this confused because funny enough, Dale and Kat were on Nick's podcast, and I listened to the majority of it today. I'm forgetting what stuff she said on there and what stuff she said on the episode last night, but she was, either way, she was really pissed about it. on the show, and whatever, cut to commercial basically, and Dale seemed to be like just kind of questioning, like it had to come from somewhere, but yet he was totally like standing by her and supporting her. So okay. um so then when we get back from commercial, Dale comes out to everyone, and he like said that Kat has been writing him letters like this whole time they've been there. And he just brought one out for an example of like the stuff that she was saying to him, these love letters. And I guess that was like his proof that, she was as committed to him as he was to her, blah, 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 blah. So, anyway, then it's time for everyone to vote. And they do so. And then we learn that it's the last day of paradise, and Jess is literally ITMing at this point, that she doesn't know if she's ready for an engagement. Kat and Dale are talking, and she's so touched that he supported her through the whole night. Then Jesse comes out to tell them the results of the vote, and we find out this was really kind of anticlimactic. It was real like, I thought they were going to have some big ceremony or something, but it wasn't. And he was basically like, Justin Spencer, you won the vote. So basically, Dale and Kat, you're going home. So it's these two couples, 4 people left. This part was so weird to me. I honestly still don't get it. It was very strange. So what they do is they show Jesse, and he has literally a bag of cash laying in front of him on a table. And one by one, just individually, they walked up to the table, and he was telling them that they had a choice. They could either pick the money or pick love. If they pick love, then they go and they wait for their partner. If their partner picked love too, then they like win because they picked love. But if like one of them picked money and one of them picked love, then basically the person that picked love was just screwed, I guess, and the other person walks away with money. It's weird. I mean, I guess that's not that weird, because that's how they did the Bachelor Pad, and I think that's also how Love Island, is too. But it just the way they did it and the way they worded it and the way he explained it, I was like, what? So I mean, basically, like, not to like draw it out, all 4 pick love, and in both scenarios they had the man go up first, so like Andrew and then Spencer, and they made it seem in both instances like the girls weren't going to come, and like they were like, oh, I'm so depressed, and then they came up, oh, just kidding, oh, did you really think I would pick the money, whatever. So then, but this was the part that was so weird to me, and I rewound it like 2 or 3 times, and I'm not 100% sure even but how much it was. But so it started with Alex and Andrew, and Jesse comes out then after they pick each other, and they're like laughing and stuff, and he's like, well, it's not over yet. And then he's like, here, I have these 3 envelopes, and there are varying amounts of money in each envelope, so you can, like, this is your last test. What? Wait. Oh, this is the biggest test ever. Which envelope we're going to pick, honey? The left one or the middle one or the right one? Oh my God, whatever. So they pick an envelope, like, I mean, I think what felt so weird about this is like every envelope could have like the same exact amount of money, or I don't know. It just seems so weird. And also, what I was confused about is they kept saying from the beginning that they had the opportunity to win up to $500,000. Now, I know that makes sense. Like, they have the opportunity. It's like trickery in words, but up to $500,000. So, but what did that mean? Because in my opinion, there was at no point by the time they got to the end did they, because the bag of money that was in front of them, he said was $250,000. So I guess as a couple, they could win $500,000, because if like both Andrew and Alex picked money, they each would walk away with $250,000. Like, I'm assuming that that's like what that meant. So then as a couple, but then they wouldn't be a couple anymore because they chose money over love. But also I think it's real dumb, because like, why wouldn't you, like, behind the scenes and behind the camera, like, because I feel like that doesn't take a rocket scientist to put together that's probably what they're going to do is make you pick love or money. And why wouldn't you just go, okay, hey, let's both pick money. And then when the show is over, we'll just get engaged. Like, right? Like, why can't they do that? Why can't they do that? They know they're not picking, like they're picking each other, but hell, we'll get $500,000 between us. Oh, right? I feel like that's the thing. Anyway, so they had to pick an envelope, and they picked an envelope, and I could not understand how much money he said it was. And they showed the check from too far away, and my eyes are too bad, so I couldn't read what the check said. I think it said $125,000 that Alex and Andrew get. And they were like, yeah, we'll pay off my student loans or whatever. I don't know. It was just a very random, weird thing. I felt like what they should have done is like, well, surprise, you both pick love, but you still win the $250,000. Like, why not just do that? Whatever. So then Spencer and of course Jess shows up, and they pick their envelope, and it's $190,000. Like, what? What? You won $192,893. Woo! Like, that's such a specific amount, 190,000. And they're like, oh my God, 190. I don't know. This part was just very strange and weird to me. I'm really happy that they won money, but, and also he proposes to her. Sorry, I left this part out. He went ahead and proposes to her, and like, she immediately says yes and is like so super excited about it. When like for the last two shows, she's been talking about how she's scared he's rushing it because he wants to move in so quick, and that, you know, she's got this anxiety. Just like freaking 10 minutes before that, she was talking about how much anxiety she had. And I guess the anxiety went away. I guess $190,000 made that anxiety go right away. So anyway, that was it. And then they did a little blurb at the end that said that all of the couples were still together. Kat and Dale, not all of the couples, but Kat and Dale were still together. Spencer and Jess are still together. Andrew and Alex are still together. And who am I missing? And Spencer and Jess. Did I say that? Spencer and Jess, Dale and Kat, Andrew and Alex, and I can't think of who else. Who's the other one? Anyway, they're still all together. I know I'm missing one, but whatever. They're Dale and Kat, Spencer and Jess, Andrew. Forget it. Never mind. They're all together still. And I know for sure Dale and Kat are still together. Like I said, they were just on Nick Vile's podcast. So I really, to be honest, was super busy today, and I did not have time to check social media. I'm sure a lot of them are posting together now, if they are still together, to like prove like we don't have to be a secret anymore, and we're like so happy, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, that is the end of Bachelor in Paradise. Thank God. I don't know, guys. My end analysis was, yes, it was definitely better than previous Bachelor in Paradises. The format is better. I think that, like, I liked where they weren't like all hot and sweaty all the time. I like that they added these little games and these little competitions. Honestly, the Goldens wasn't a bad addition. It kind of added a little bit of something different. You know, they didn't really get that much airtime anyway. But I think it was too long. First of all, it was too many weeks for me. I think they could have shortened it by quite a bit. To me, it wasn't enough content that kept me super interested. And for whatever reason, watching it 2 hours at a time just seems so long to me. I know it makes absolutely no sense because I binge watched Love Island UK like for 6 hours in a row, and it was fine. So I know that doesn't make any logical sense, but I don't know. It just didn't. It was too much. So I don't know what I suggest, but I have not heard anything about The Bachelor itself in January. I don't even know if that has been renewed for sure. But what I do know is the Golden Bachelor starts in a little while. And yeah, so we will recap starting then. In the meantime, I'm trying to line up some more interviews. You know, if I don't have any interviews lined up, I will maybe just recap some books I'm reading. I'm currently reading The Wedding People, which is a really good book. I'm would like to, you know me, I just watch TV. That's what I do for a living that doesn't pay. But yeah, I'll come up with some content for you guys. But I appreciate you listening as always. Hit subscribe, go to YouTube and watch, subscribe on YouTube, go to my TikTok, Be Anything by Natalie, go to my TikTok Reality of the Rose, go to my Instagram Reality of the Rose. I have all of the things right now, and I hope I'm not spreading myself too thin, but follow me all those places, tell your friends, and let me know if there's anything you guys want to hear or would enjoy listening to or about. I'd love to hear from you. So as always, be calm, be strong, be kind, and be grateful. Thank you. Bye.